Welcome back to the channel. It's Formula Park 1. We showcase amateur athletes every day. If you're an amateur athlete and would like a player spotlight, DM me for collaboration. Today we're talking about the AP poll rankings. Coming at number 1 is the Ohio State Buckeyes, who remain number 1 with a record 5-0. And Ohio State played Illinois this week, and they're favored by 2 touchdowns. And the Buckeyes are led by a dynamic quarterback, Julian Sand. His stats this year, he has over 1,300 passing yards, 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and a QBR of 85.8. And the Ohio State Buckeyes got a big playmaker at wideout is Jeremiah Smith, who has 33 receptions for 6 touchdowns and 463 yards and averaging 13 yards per catch. They got a tough matchup this week. We shall see how they fare out. Coming at number 2 is the Miami Hurricanes. Then they went up one spot and they have a record of 5-0, and they don't play anybody this week. And the Miami Hurricane is led by Carson Beck, and his stats so far this year is 1,200 yards passing, 11 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and has a QBR 84.4, and he's ranked 10 in the nation in that stat. And the U has another dynamic performer, Malachi Tony, a great wide receiver, and his stats for this season, he has 24 receptions, 375 yards, and 3 touchdowns, and averaging over 12 yards per catch. Coming in number 3 is the Oregon Ducks, who come in this week 5-0. They went down one spot in the AP poll, and their next opponent is Indiana. Oregon is favored by 2 touchdowns. And the Oregon Ducks have a great quarterback, Dante Moore, who has over 1,200 yards passing, 14 touchdowns, and 1 interception this season so far. A great quarterback must have a dynamic wide receiver, and Oregon has one. Korean Moore, who has 19 receptions, 296 yards, 2 touchdowns, and is averaging over 15 yards per catch. And coming at number 4 is Ole Miss, who comes in this week 5-0. And Ole Miss this week plays Washington, and Ole Miss is favored by a whopping 32 points. And Ole Miss is led by dynamic quarterback Trinidad Chambers, who this season has over 1,000 yards passing yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception, and has a QBR of 88.3. And Ole Miss has a solid running game, and they are led by Kewan Lacey, who has over 102 carries, 445 yards rushing, 8 touchdowns, and an averaging 4 yards per carry. Coming at number 5 is Texas A&M, who has a record of 5-0, and they went up one spot this week in the AP poll. Their next opponent is Florida, and Texas A&M is favored by 8 points. Marcel Reed for Texas A&M has been having a great season so far. He has over 1,200 yards passing, 11 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and a QBR of 65.1, and is ranked 52 in the nation. And Marcel Reed's favorite target is Mario Craver, and this season he has 30 receptions for over 500 yards, 4 touchdowns, is averaging 18.6 yards per catch. Coming at number 6 is the Oklahoma Sooners, who's coming in with a record of 5-0 and went down one spot in the AP poll. And Oklahoma versus Texas this week, and Texas is a 3-point favorite, surprisingly of that. And the Sooners are led by John Mature, who this season has over 1,200 passing yards already, 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and a QBR of 75.5. And Oklahoma has a great wide receiver, Isaiah Satinga II, who has 26 receptions for 359 yards, 3 touchdowns, and averaging over 13 yards per catch. Coming in number 7 is Indiana with a record of 5-0. They went up one spot in the AP poll last week. Indiana is versus Oregon is their next matchup, and Oregon is favored by 2 touchdowns. And Indiana is led by Fernando Mendoza, who this season has over 1,200 yards passing, 16 touchdowns, one intercept, and a QBR of 81.8. And Indiana has a great wide receiver, Omar Cooper Jr., who has 23 receptions, 432 yards, 6 touchdowns, and averaging a whopping 18 yards per catch. Let's roll tide. Alabama comes in at number 8 in the AP poll, and they went up 2 spots, and they have a record of 4-1. And this week, Alabama versus Missouri, and Alabama is favored by 3.5 points. And Alabama is led by Ty Simpson, and this season he has over 1,400 yards passing, 13 touchdowns, one interception, and has a QBR of 174.7. And Alabama has a great wideout, Jeremy Bernard, and this season he has 25 receptions, 392 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Coming in number 9 is Texas Tech, who this week comes in a record of 5-0 and then went up 2 spots on the AP poll. Texas Tech plays Kansas, and Texas Tech is favored by a touchdown. Texas Tech is led by Brennan Martin, who this season stats he has over 1,400 yards passing, 12 touchdowns, 3 intercepts, and a QBR of 69, and he is ranked 44th in the nation. And Texas Tech has another outstanding performer, Corey Eakin, a wide receiver, who has 24 receptions, 341 yards, 3 touchdowns, and averaging over 14 yards per catch. Coming at number 10 is Georgia, who coming in this week with a record of 4-1 and went up 2 spots. And their next opponent is Auburn. Georgia versus Auburn, and Georgia is favored by 3.5 points. And Georgia is led by Gunnar Stockton. And this season, so far, he has over 1,000 yards passing, 16 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a QBR of 89.5. And on the ground, the Georgia Bulldogs have a dynamic running back, Chauncey Bowens, who so far this season has 56 carries, 310 yards, and 3 touchdowns, and averaging at 5 yards per carry. Coming in at number 11 is LSU, who this week come in with a record of 4-1, and they went up 2 spots. And LSU faces South Carolina, and the Tigers are favored by 10 points. And LSU is led by Gary Nussmeier, and this season he has over 1,100 yards passing, 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and a QBR of 76.8, and ranked 29th in the nation. And to help their quarterback out, they have a dynamic wide receiver, Aaron Anderson, who has 23 receptions, 305 yards, no touchdowns this season, but has over 13 yards per catch. Coming in at number 12 is the Tennessee Volunteers, who comes in this week with a record 4-1, and they went up 3 spots. And this week's opponent is Tennessee versus Arkansas, and Tennessee is favored by 13 points. And the Tennessee Volunteers have a dynamic quarterback, Joey Aguilar, and this season's stats so far is 1,400 yards passing, 13 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and a QBR rating of 72, and he's ranked 36th in the nation. And the Volunteers have a great wide receiver to aid their quarterback, and his name is Chris Purcell II, who has 31 receptions, 531 yards, 7 touchdowns, and is averaging over 17 yards per catch. Coming in at number 13 is Georgia Tech, who this week comes in with a record of 5-0 and went up 4 spots. And Georgia Tech versus Virginia Tech. And Georgia Tech is favored by 2 touchdowns. And Georgia Tech is led by Haynes Kings. And this season, so far, he has 758 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception, and a QBR rating of 76.8. And at wideout, Georgia Tech has Isaiah Cannon, who has 15 receptions for 237 yards, 2 touchdowns, and averaging 16 yards per catch. And coming in at number 15 is the Missouri Tigers, who enter this week with a 5-0 record, and they went up 5 spots in the AP poll. Missouri faces Alabama this week, and Alabama is favored by 3.5 points. And Missouri is led by Bo Prabula, who this season already has over 1,200 yards passing, 9 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions, and has a QBR of 78.2, and he's rated 20th in the nation. And Missouri has a solid running attack behind Amon Hardy, who has 103 carries, 730 yards, and 9 touchdowns, and is averaging over 7 yards per rush. Coming at number 15 is the Michigan Wolverines, and coming with a record of 4-1 this week. They went up 5 spots. And this week they have a big game, Michigan versus USC, and USC is favored by 2.5 points. And the Michigan Wolverines are led by their dynamic freshman quarterback, Bryce Underwood, who so far this season has over 1,000 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a QBR of 74.2, 32nd ranked in the nation. And the Michigan Wolverines have a solid running attack behind Justice Haynes, who so far this season has 85 carries for 650 yards, 8 touchdowns, and averaging a dynamic 7.7 yards per carry. Coming at number 16 is Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They're coming in this week with a 3-2 record, and they went up 5 spots in the AP poll. And this week, Notre Dame faces North Carolina State, and Notre Dame is favored by 3 touchdowns. And the Notre Dame Fighting Irish is led by C.J. Carr, who so far this season has over 1,200 yards passing, 11 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions, and a QBR rating of 86.3. And the Fighting Irish have another dynamic performer, Jeremiah Love, who has 82 carries so far this season for 444 yards, 6 touchdowns, and is averaging 5 yards per carry. Coming at number 17 is Illinois Fighting Illini with a record of 5-2, and they went up 5 spots in the AP poll. Illinois versus Ohio State should be a tough matchup, and Ohio State is favored by 2 touchdowns. Illinois is led by Heisman hopeful Luke Altmaier, who has over 1,500 yards passing, 12 touchdowns, and a QBR of 86.8, 6th in the nation. And for Illinois, Hank Betty is having a phenomenal season so far. He has 32 receptions for over 500 yards and 2 touchdowns. Coming at number 18 is BYU, who has a record of 5-0, and they went up 5 spots in the AP poll. And this week, BYU versus Arizona, and BYU is a slight favorite in the game by 2.5 points. And at the quarterback position for BYU, they're led by Bear Bechmeyer, who has over 1,000 yards passing so far, 7 touchdowns, and 1 interception, and has a QBR of 73.1, and it's ranked number 34 in the nation. And BYU, L.J. Martin have a solid year so far. He has 76 carries, 490 yards, 3 touchdowns, and averaging 6 yards per carry. Coming at number 19 is Virginia, who's come in this week with a record of 5-1, and they went up 5 spots. And Virginia will be playing Washington State this weekend. And Virginia is favored to win by a touchdown. And Virginia has a dynamic quarterback, Chandler Morris, who is throwing over 1,400 yards already, has 11 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, and has a QBR of 80.2 and ranked number 17 in the nation. And Virginia has a very balanced running attack, and it's led by Jamari Taylor, who has 91 carries, 465 yards, and 8 touchdowns on the season. Coming in at number 20 is the Vanderbilt Commodores, whose record is 5-1, and they went down 4 spots, and they don't have to play a game this week. This is a great time for them to rest their players. And the Vanderbilt Commodores have a great quarterback, Diego Pavade, who has 1,400 yards passing so far, 14 touchdowns, 4 intercepts, and a QBR rating of 83.4, and he's ranked number 9th in the country. And the Vanderbilt Commodores have a big contributor on the offensive side, and his name is Eli Stowers. His stats are 25 receptions for 323 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Arizona State is coming in at number 21 with a 4-1 record, and they went up 4 spots in the AP poll. And Arizona State versus Utah this week, and Utah is favored to win by a touchdown. And Arizona State has a great quarterback, Sam Levitt, a Heisman hopeful. So far, he has 1,000 yards passing, 8 touchdowns, 3 intercepts, and a QBR rating of 63.6, and he's ranked number 61st in the nation. Arizona State Sun Devils have a strong running attack, and it's led by Raleek Brown, who has 77 carries, 500 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, and averaging 6 yards per rush. Iowa State comes in ranked number 22 in the AP poll, and they have a record of 5-1, and they went down by 8 spots. Wow. And Iowa State versus Colorado, and Iowa State is favored to win by 4.5 points. Iowa State has a dynamic quarterback, Rocco Bachette, who is having a great season so far. He has over 1,400 yards passing already, 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a QBR of 71.9, and ranked 58 in the nation in that stat. Iowa State has a strong running game behind Carson Hansen. He has 79 carries, 348 yards, and 2 touchdowns, and averaging over 4 yards per carry. Coming at number 23 is the Memphis Tigers, and this is their first time coming into the AP poll this year. Memphis plays UAB this week, and Memphis is favored by 16 points. The Memphis Tigers are led by Brendan Lewis, a dynamic quarterback who has over 1,200 yards passing already in this season. He has 8 touchdowns, 4 intercepts, and a 68.9 QBR rating. The Memphis Tigers have a strong running attack that's led by Sutton Smith, who has 70 carries for 454 yards and 6 touchdowns. Coming at number 24 is South Florida with a record of 4-1, and this is their first time in the AP poll. Their next game is South Florida versus North Texas, as South Florida is a 9-point favorite to win. And South Florida is led by Byron Brown, who has over 1,100 yards passing already, 10 touchdowns, 4 intercepts, and a QBR rating of 61.6, and he's 69th ranked in the nation. And South Florida has a dynamic wide receiver, Chris Nimrod, who has 19 receptions for 421 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he's averaging 22 yards per catch. Coming at number 25 to end the list is Florida State Seminoles, who has a record of 3-2, and they went down by 7 spots. And the Florida State Seminoles are led by Tommy Castellino, who has over 1,100 passing yards already, 6 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, and a QBR rating of 76.2. That's ranked 27th in the nation. And Florida State has a dynamic wide receiver, a big game threat, Deuce Robinson, who has 23 receptions for 433 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that completes the list for the AP Top 25 teams. For all your amateur news, subscribe to Formula Park 1 on YouTube. Thank you for your support.